Welcome back, everybody, to Clicks and Bricks. Today is September 7th. Wow, we're flying through this month already. Really excited about today's episode. We've got Bobby Shanks. He's the author of a book called Undateable. Before we bring him on, though, if you'd like to join my text line community, 314-370-2871 is my text line community. This is Clicks and Bricks, where every day we talk about business and technology. If you like business and technology, smash that like and subscribe button so you get updates whenever we go live every day at noon. So I don't think there's anything else to get to. Let's go ahead and bring Bobby right in and we'll jump right into the interview. We don't have any news or anything like that. So Bobby and I met, was it 1999?
I think it was in 1999, man. It's been a hot minute, hadn't it?
Yeah, we both worked for a company called, actually, a company that I'm still working for partially as Primary Network. Were you at Primary or Empower?
Well, so I came from an acquisition out of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Q Network.
Okay,
And
Q&I, yes.
That's where you and I first met because you were hauling equipment from St. Louis to KC, and we met in the Network Operations Center there.
Wow, so that was a long time ago. I was still hauling servers around in the back of pickup trucks and U-Hauls and stuff like that, putting servers together for random people. And then from there, Bobby went on. I stayed in technology, and Bobby, after the bust, was it right? What year did you go into real estate?
2006.
2006. So you stayed in tech through the bubble for some time, and then went into real estate. And then when Bobby left IT world, we kind of lost contact, but recently made contact again when his daughter was wanting to learn how to box. And in St. Louis, at least, I've got a pretty nice boxing school here in St. Louis. So Bobby's
very nice.
Bobby's now working with one of my kickboxing coaches, or his daughter's working with one of my kickboxing coaches, and they're having a lot of fun overcoming a lot of hurdles in life together. So that's been exciting. Then we got to talking, and then Bobby's like, hey, I got this book coming out, and he's doing all this stuff. So let's start out with talking about some of the components of the book. And what is the book about, Bobby?
Okay, so here's the book right here. This is actually one of the first versions of the book to be printed. As you can see right there, it's called Undateable. So a lot of people have been following my journey. Hey, let me tell you something. It was this week, a year ago, that I wrote the very first lines of this book.
Oh, shoot.
And I wrote this book in 2.5 months, and now pretty much a full year later, it's going to be released on Amazon on September 15th.
Nice.
My friends like to make fun of me because they think the book is about me. And why I feel like I'm undateable. And reality of it is, being a single guy in today's world, especially when it comes to dating apps and the technology behind that, and what people should probably know that they don't know as they're just sort of swiping through. I call it wiping through. Joke, pun absolutely intended.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a pretty dateable dude. And I have been on many, many undateable dates with people, delightful gals. But for some reason or another, I could just identify what their undateable tendencies were. And so a year ago, after being very frustrated as a pretty willing guy to, find Mrs. Right, if you will, after dating, through the summer, I just sat down on my sofa one night with my computer and I just started journaling all of these undateable tendencies, and completely by accident, 2.5 months later, I wrote this book.
Nice. So that reminds me a little bit. Have you read McConaughey's Green Lights?
I love that book. I like Matthew McConaughey and have for years.
He's a long way from all right, but he's wildly inspirational, and that book is, similar to what you did. Was you started with the journal, and then you went back and looked at that journal, and like, oh shoot, I can make something out of this. That's how he wrote Green Lights. So that was, I guess, one of your green light moments, right? Is having that.
Well, and so one of my here's just to make a fun dating punny joke. In dating, it's not about green lights, it's about red light.
Yeah. Yep.
And one of the things I talk about in my book and on my podcast is I help people see that, you know, there's kind of this in-between space. It's not all green lights and red lights. Sometimes there's some yellows in here, right? Some yellow flags.
Well, that's marriage all day long.
Yeah.
Exactly. On the marriage side, there's definitely a lot of yellow lights. Like there's.
Hey, I actually have a chat. This book is for single people, but I actually have a chapter in there for married people because I was married for 20 years.
Right. Yeah, and it's, you know, I've been married now for 16, and me and my wife work together, which is a challenge. She works for Host Steering. She's got a customer that she's the project manager on, and which is fantastic because I don't have to talk. Like, she handles the client. I told her, as long as the client's here, you got the job. If you lose the client, then you lose the job. And it's like, they just work together, and I don't have to, it works really well. And then, you know, she runs the gym, or at least partially runs the gym with a couple other managers. So it is challenging, but I think a lot of times we have to go back to a dating mindset to, you know, I'm practicing gratefulness, and I'm not really good at it, and it's a new thing that I'm really trying to do. And you know, when you're married for a long time, you lose a lot of that things that you're grateful about your spouse, and going back and saying, oh yeah, I don't ever tell her she's a great mom, or I don't ever tell her she's great at her job, and I just tell her about the shit that I don't like, right? So
Yep.
You know, maybe having some of these tendencies lined up while you're in the dating stage could help you choose a better spouse. Is that kind of the goal?
It does. So one of the chapters in the book, it's called The Three Pillars. And the purpose of the three pillars, and here's the way I want people to think about it. I want you to imagine a triangle, and it's laying flat like this, and it's got three pillars, and they have to be equal height and equal importance, or else your triangle is not level. And so the impetus behind the three pillars are, you know, if you're single and ready to mingle and you're really serious about a long-term relationship, and look, this book is coming from a dude, right? This isn't the chick flick of romantic dating books written by a woman.
Right.
Like, I'm a middle-aged guy. I'm about as manly as it gets. I'm a bow hunter. I fish, I hunt, I have a Harley, I have tattoos, you know, but I wrote a book on, you know, long-term relationship development and how to do it the right way versus the wrong way. And the three pillars are really identifying, like, just stopping where you are in your life. Just for once, to stop and actually think about what your core values are. And I go through this whole exercise that starts with having the reader think about, if I'm alone on a deserted island, all right, think about Tom Hanks and Wilson, what would my core values be even if I never had any human interaction ever again? And then how to take those core values. I actually have a place in the book to write them down.
Nice.
So it's got a little bit of an exercise. And how to then hit your dating giant red reset button, take your core values, go back out to the market, the dating pool,
right,
and try again.
So when I'm dealing with people in business on a daily basis, and I'm talking with somebody about how to do sales or how to do marketing or how to hire somebody, I very, very frequently correlate that back to the dating world, right? And when you're in the dating world, you have a bunch of different objectives, right?
You are a smart man.
Because it's true, right? It's sales, right? You're trying to, I mean, when you're dating, you're trying to sell yourself to the other person, right? You want to do it in an honest way because you don't want the covers to come up like, whoa, shoot, that was a lot of makeup you had, right? So, all right, so honesty and empathy and all those things play in dating and business and marriage are very similar when it comes to, you know, bringing on new clients, because we've all had toxic clients, right?
Oh, yeah.
That we just took because they had a paycheck, right? Well, you know, dating the pretty girl at the bar because she's the pretty girl isn't always the best. I mean, it worked for me, at least so far. But
Yeah.
it worked once, and I probably dated 1,000 pretty girls from the bar. So,
Right.
But yeah, so it's interesting. I always like that correlation of, because humans are hungry to date and hungry to interact and be with, somebody that's going to compliment them and help them grow together. And it's a primal need inside of us, right? And
It is.
if
Absolutely.
you can take that primal need and associate it to, I need more staff to grow my company, then you start getting a guy that's a hiring manager that's like, oh, I'm going to call him, text him, and email him. I'm not going to be too aggressive because I don't want to scare them off and think I'm desperate. But, they start getting into that mindset of, okay, how do I position myself in the best light for this employee to come work for our company versus my competitor? And that's how you get the best employees, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably, I think there's probably a lot in the book that you could correlate to business from that world as well, like those three pillars.
There's I have a chapter in the book for men.
Yeah.
So I have one chapter specifically talking to men. I have one chapter specifically talking to women. And in the chapter speaking to men, it's called X-Men.
Yeah.
And now here's the thing. I'm going to have a total dude moment here. Let's just beat our chest together.
Yeah.
I love superhero movies. I love action movies. I'm a dude. And bingo.
All day
And
long.
I have lots of references in my book from Pirates of the Caribbean, X-Men, Wonder Woman, The Matrix. I've got movie references all over my book, and the chapter for men is called X-Men. And in that chapter, what I say to men more than anything else, it is your genetic design. It is your primal Neanderthal caveman purpose to be an initiator.
Yeah.
And I cross-reference, because I need to speak the man language, I cross-reference what initiation does for you in dating, right? So with the opposite sex. And then I cross-reference that to when you learn how to be an initiator in relationships, here's what it's going to do for you in your career. And then that's where I really just blow their mind. And you know this because you're a business owner, a multiple business owner.
I could not do it without my wife's support. There's zero.
Oh, well, that's where you have a leg up on a guy like me, because I'm lone wolfing it.
Right.
But the point of the chapter is, men, if you're fearful, if you're lazy, if your highest achievement in life is that you can provide for yourself and put away 10% in your 401k every year, then quite frankly, you're pretty boring.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sorry about saying it.
Yep.
Like, you've got to be able to, and look, I'm not saying
They just haven't found their path yet, right?
Yeah, you don't have to go out and be the next Gary Vee, but how about be the trustee of your subdivision? How about having a side hustle, or something like that? So the whole chapter deals with taking initiative.
Right. Which is awesome, and I feel like, my wife does so much more for me than just in what you would traditional role of what a wife you would think would be. But yeah, definitely being able to go to work and not having distractions about my personal life, knowing that I've got a safe, secure place to go, and all of my primal desires and needs of the world and closeness with somebody and intimacy is there, right? And that helps me a ton to be able to just go out and crush whatever things I need to crush. And I know I'm going to go home, and if I'm wounded, I'll have somebody to lick my wounds. And if I'm successful that day, I got somebody to party with, right? And I don't have to go out and find that person every time like I did. It was a lot of fun in my 30s doing that, finding that new person on a regular basis. But it is tiring and dangerous. So, awesome.
Absolutely.
So we're about 15 minutes in. We're going to pause for a second for our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by nlink.com. Report made easy. My nlink.com account is nlink.com/Ken. You can go there and you get all of your different accounts. You've got my links to my Facebook, my TikTok, my podcasts, my Spotify, my Cash App. Every profile that I have is at nlink.com/Ken. Sign up for nlink today and get your name before it's gone. Moving on, so I'm going to ask you two questions, Bobby, and they're challenging ones. One, I like to give a tip at every show, but since you're the guest, you're going to give the tip today.
All right.
What is one either growth tip or focus tip that you think helps you the most? And since we're talking about the book, and you wrote it in a year, which is theoretically breakneck speed, right? It can be really slow to some, but other people writing a book like that could take several years.
Actually, I wrote the book in 2.5 months and spent the rest of the time editing and publishing.
Right. So how did you keep, what was your tip on keeping focus on, not hitting the TV, not hitting Netflix, not playing the game, not going to the bar after, not staying for the, I'm famous for one more at happy hour until they're kicking me out of the bar at 4 a.m. So, what are some, and I like to have tactics that help me, stop, I go to happy hour with the clients, okay, happy hour's over at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I'm going to go home now. I've always really struggled with that. So, I'd like to hear some tips on how you stay focused.
So, boy, I could, that's a book by itself, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But here's a little trick that I do that helps me, whether it's with my career or with book writing or whatever my interests are. I have an iPhone, and anybody who has an iPhone, and I'm sure, Samsungs have the same thing. There's a notes. So if it's not on my notes, as far as like my daily agenda, then it does not happen. Now, do I eat lunch and do I sleep and do I pick my daughter up at the bus stop? Yes. Are those on my notes? No. So I have my schedule, but as far as the things that I do that take initiative. So how that translates into answer the question is, I would put in my notes that I am going to, I had a second note where I'm just writing down my notes, right? My thoughts from the day or extension of the week or whatever activity I was doing.
Right.
When there was something important I needed to include either in a new chapter or in a pre-existing chapter. And then I would make sure that every night, like you said, instead of sitting there Netflixing and chilling all by my lonesome, I would actually, so here, I'll give away something. I would actually listen to classic rock and roll on these headphones.
Yeah.
And sit on my sofa with my laptop and my iPhone actually clipped in this little guy right here, so I could scroll through while I was going through my chapters to make changes. And I did that every night, usually after my daughter went to bed, so 9 or 10 o'clock. And sometimes I'd be done in an hour, and sometimes if I really got, a rush of creative energy, I could be as late as 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, when you get in the flow, you definitely want to stay there, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing. I will say this. I'm kind of a high energy guy anyways. I eat well. I have a steady workout regimen. So it's not just the mental stuff, it's the physical stuff too. And when you're a single dude or a single girl, you're a little more, shall we say, self-conscious about how you personally look, right? Because you're on the market, right? You're shopping and you're being shopped.
Right.
So, keeping up with my physical abilities is definitely a huge boost as far as keeping up with all of the mental stuff that I have to endure with every day.
Right, and in business, you need physical endurance. Like, I know that people think you don't really need it. We probably don't have the best examples of businessmen in our country that are at a peak level. Trump has a horrible diet, but Jobs was a pretty healthy fella. I think Benzo's is decently, and I cannot think of the guy that Warren Buffett. He's got a horrible diet, but he does kind of keep. He eats McDonald's every single morning for breakfast. Like Warren Buffett, he stops and gets. And I know, I bet I could choose what he's going to order for breakfast based on what the stock market opened at. Because if it's down, he gets just a sausage patty, but if it's up, he gets 2 sausage muffins.
Oh my gosh! Well, so now all things in moderation. So literally today, after I get off of this call, I'm meeting a friend at McDonald's.
Oh really?
Yeah, I texted her. And I'm like, Daddy needs a quarter pounder.
Yeah. So I just want to rewind for a second and then talk about, because we were talking about men are predisposed to be you didn't use the word aggressor, but that's definitely what I heard. I definitely think that some of the female listeners might have heard, when we say initiator, they might have heard aggressor, right? Because we do that with our human brains. And that's, for a man to be the initiator today, is a scary thing, right? So I think the tip is don't date the office pool anymore at all. Like just anybody that works in your office, totally off limits. Specifically if you're a manager or a supervisor of any kind, 100% off limits.
Agreed.
Keep your dating pool outside of the office completely, because the risk, I mean, the reward is worth the risk if you find the love of your life, but you're probably going to you're going to hit a couple duds on the way, and it could cost you dearly by dating.
I'm 100% in agreement. So, I mean, besides being a book author, my real station in life, if you will, is I own a real estate brokerage. And in the city, the greater metropolitan area of St. Louis, there are 13,000 real estate agents. And then if you combine on top of that, all of the mortgage lenders, home inspectors, surveyors, all the people that come together in this 3 or 4 million people market, I would guess it's probably 40,000 people that are in real estate, and 80+% of them are women. And I have vowed for years now, I will not, under any circumstance, forget about the office. If you are in real estate and you're in St. Louis, I'm not going out.
Okay.
No.
Which makes it even more challenging, right? Because that's a lot of people. Right?
Yeah, because those are my people.
And like-minded people as well, right? You want to be with someone that's like-minded. And what I know of real estate agents, I think there's 2 kinds of real estate agents. There's ones that work and ones that don't work. They just have their license, right? But the ones that do work, forget about their physical appearance. They're attractive because they're hustlers.
Yeah.
At least they're. My biggest curse in life is that I'm wildly attracted to really strong, independent women, but I also like to be coddled. So those 2 don't very well mix together. But I deal with it. It'll be okay.
So you want the girl from the Poison video from 1984, but you also want to nurture her.
Yes, but I'll take the ball buster all day over the non. So you also have a podcast about Undateable.
I do.
And when do those episodes go out? And where are they at?
So they go out. We release promos every single day. You can find us on YouTube under Undateable the book or Undateable the podcast. But we have a large following on Facebook. We released TikTok here recently.
Yep.
One of our videos went, I don't know, I guess you would call it viral. I don't know what the number is for viral, but it had over 50,000 hits.
That's a good run.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to find us on the socials. Facebook, it's just facebook.com/undateable the book is where we have our most interaction.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for just 3-minute or less clips, TikTok. We do release every week on Thursday our full podcast, which is usually an hour or so long. And here's the thing that's really cool about you and I kind of have a similar thing. I bring on single people in my studio and we sit there and talk about dating. So one of our first things is we call it requested or rejected. And our show's producer, who is Ian Brown, he's been with me now for about 3 years. He comes on and he'll say, girls who wear mom jeans, requested or rejected. And so, every other week I'll have a different guest. This week it's a girl, next week it's a guy, and I rotate. And we do this, 20-minute segment called Requested or Rejected. And let me tell you, I have laughed so hard, I've actually spit whiskey out my nose. Because it gets so authentic.
Right.
And the types of people that I have on my show are very, very diverse. I have a book author from Pittsburgh called the Pittsburgh Blonde, or the Berg Blonde. And she has some wild stories that are just, like, I'm blushing just talking about it. I've had some super devout Christian people on my show, and we kind of look at it from that angle. It's fantastic. The podcast is great. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to film, and it gets great reviews. It's good. It's a good prop up for the book.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll have to definitely dive a little deeper into the podcast for you. Unfortunately, I can't be a guest.
Awesome.
Fortunately, I can't be a guest. Right? I guess that's a good thing for me.
Sorry.
As a married man, and settling way into his old age pretty well. So in that podcast, right? So this is Clicks and Bricks. We talk about business and technology. Can you talk a little bit about, if it's one piece of technology or kind of an underlying architecture that you feel is available today that my camera just died, but they're trying to figure that out now. That you use to get that podcast going?
Oh my gosh. Well, so first of all, I'm very blessed that I have a marketing director who works for my real estate brokerage, where we do a lot of very intense social media and video, both for our clients, our featured properties, for the brokerage itself. And so I started writing this book. I never told anybody I was writing this book until it just happened. I just came out with it last December. I'm like, hey, look, everybody, I wrote a book. What's it about?
That's the way to do it.
It's called Undateable. It's why dating sucks, And so he and I were doing one of our weekly operational meetings in December. And I'm like, you know what, dude, we should have some fun with this whole book thing. Let's do a podcast just for single people who are dating. So we did our first show in January. We have, actually, it's kind of funny because I sat in a big leather chair that's got animal skin on it. I've got a big leather couch that my guest hosts sit on. And we make it really sort of, swaggy, very bougie.
Right.
And, we drink a little wine, we drink a little whiskey or whatever. And our producer, Ian, he just asks questions, and then myself and my guest host just sit there and answer them. And then we usually have a couple main topics.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think we're wrapping up for the day. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you'd like? I did want to put in something. I don't know if you remember that. I used to own and operate dating sites in the early 2000s, right? And I'm under court order not to talk about the names of it, but if you look up Ken Cox WIPO, W-I-P-O, you'll see the legal cases where I had to fight some pretty big companies.
My gosh, that's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I remember in 1999, early 2000, I'm like, I want to learn how to program. How do I do that? And I was single at the time. I'm like, well, I like dating. So I wrote a dating app, and it got pretty popular. We got to about 100,000 members before it got so challenging to keep it on with the legal battles with some of the giant dating companies on the planet that they basically told me to go away.
Talking about dating apps and how it relates to dating is a monstrous discussion.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into it, but I think today, and I'm unfortunately for me, I don't know what it's like to date in 2010, 2020. But my assumption is that the dating apps are really just hookup apps, or at least that's the way they're perceived by anybody that's not using them.
Tinder is a hookup app. Plenty of Fish is a hookup app.
But eHarmony's legit, right? Like they're more about the long-term relationship building.
Yeah. So Bumble, Match, and eHarmony are considered the hey, I'm in it to win it, not in it to find my next friend with benefit.
Awesome. So if you're looking for advice, there's some dating advice for you. That's it for today, folks. Bobby, do you have anything to say before we cut out?
Hey, I just want to say thanks. This was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when you reconnect with someone, especially on a common area 20 years later. So Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. I'm glad we got to run back into each other and work together again. That's it for today, folks. Again, my name is Ken, Bobby Shanks. Check out the book. It's being released on September 15th on Amazon, Undateable. That's it for today, and get to work.